Call the meeting to order. After the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd appreciate it if you would just remain standing. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is one day past the 10th anniversary of the attacks on this country and the World Trade Center. I'd like please a moment of silence and contemplation for the people who lost their lives and the people who are continuing the process of defending this country. Thank you. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, notice of this meeting was sent to the Asbury Park Press on September 7th, 2011. All municipal clerks of the townships and boroughs within the regional high school district have been duly notified, and requirements of posting of notices have been met. We need vote on minutes approval? No? Okay. Communications, no. On file in the Board Secretary's office. Reports.
Sure. A number of items. First and foremost, we've had an incredibly smooth opening of schools. I am proud of how quickly the various buildings, led by our buildings and grounds and maintenance crew, responded to Hurricane Irene. Certainly, it was unexpected right before the opening of the school year to be hit with a storm of that magnitude, and the water was a problem throughout the district. Our folks in that department really worked tirelessly to make sure that our buildings were up and ready to run and clean. And I'll speak a little bit about Colts Neck High School in particular momentarily, but the rest of our buildings, it was a testament to our folks who were willing to put in the hours leading up to the opening of school to get everything up and prepared for the return of the students. We've had a very smooth opening. Our master schedules in each building, we spent an inordinate amount of time this summer really refining those schedules, making sure that we eliminated as many conflicts as possible prior to the opening of school. We had the building schedules were completed. Then folks in the HR department also reviewed those schedules. We looked at any conflicts along the way, kicked that back, and worked collaboratively with the building leadership to make sure that we really had schedules that worked this year. And I'm happy to report that our conflicts, issues, concerns are minimal. Our staffing is complete. It was done in a timely manner to make sure that we had everyone in place for the start of the school year in terms of classroom instructors. As you know, over the summer, a number of things arise. You might have folks that are unexpectedly out on a medical leave, maternity leaves, things of that nature. Folks move out of the area. You have changes. It's very difficult at times to keep up with the changing staffing needs as it kind of literally unfolds throughout the summer. So thank you to the HR department for being on top of that. One of the changes we've asked for next year is to have all 6 high schools have an additional day of 9th grade orientation other than the September 2nd date. Several of our high schools do have an extra day of 9th grade orientation. I attended a few of those and was duly impressed with the scope of introduction that it provided to both students and parents, and I want to make sure that we do that in all 6 buildings next year and that we're consistent in how we implement that. This Saturday, I had the good fortune of attending the 2nd annual Chinese Mid-Autumn Festival at Marlboro High School. I wasn't quite so successful at flying a kite for my 6-year-old as I might have hoped, but the event itself was a wonderful community event, and my family enjoyed it immensely. Obviously, over the course of this past week, we've been focused throughout the schools on recognizing the 10th anniversary of September 11th, and with the understanding, I read a great article that many of our students were 4, 5, 6 years old when that event occurred, and it's a difficult concept for kids that don't really remember it other than through other folks' experience. Obviously, if those students who've been directly impacted remember it because it's a living legacy, but it's a difficult, teachable moment in the schools, and I'm very proud at the ways in which our high schools really allowed tremendous intellectual freedom of our faculty and staff to, I think, deliver lessons that were meaningful and allowed the students to create meaning from those lessons. And they spent a lot of time planning that and really capitalizing on the opportunity to provide that anniversary as a true learning opportunity. So thank you to really the building principals for spearheading that, and for the folks taking it and running with it in the buildings, the faculty and staff who did a phenomenal job. We celebrated the opening of the Regional Learning Academy at Manalapan High School on August 31st. Dr. Hazel did a fantastic job in putting that event together. The evening was wonderful in the sense that we had a motivational speaker, and it was powerful to see some of the parents of the students of that program in the audience literally weeping at the opportunity that their students had as a result of that new program. So I think that put it all in perspective for us of what really works in education. And I wanted to go into a little bit more in depth of the events that happened at Colts Neck High School during Hurricane Irene, because I think that the public needs to be aware of it, how it unfolded for us here as a school district. During the weekend of August 27th, obviously we had ample warning that the hurricane was going to strike. The Thursday prior to the storm, we received a phone call asking if Colts Neck High School could serve as a secondary evacuation site from the Office of Emergency Management. So of course, we said yes. Our schools have all been reviewed as shelter areas. And what that really necessitated was that our buildings and grounds crew had to really get on top of that site. And we didn't know how that was going to play out. Did we expect 10 people, 15, 20? But early Saturday morning, the Red Cross was on the site setting up shelters. And by 6:45, Jim Burns, our Director of Facilities and Buildings and Grounds, was on site as well and giving me regular updates as the day unfolded. As the morning progressed, more and more folks from all over Monmouth County began to be shipped to Colts Neck High School. By 9:30 a.m., Sean Boyce was also on site. And I have to say, first and foremost, that neither one of them needed to be there. It's not in their job description to be there during this event. And both of them began to provide regular updates that were troublesome in the sense that more and more evacuees were coming into the site, and there was inadequate preparation to deal with the folks who were coming in. So in the early afternoon, we were all on site with the Red Cross, and we had over 200 folks in the shelter. And we had folks from all walks of life, children. We had folks some with severe medical issues. We had folks from group homes that were put there. There was limited security. There was no food and water other than what volunteers from the Red Cross brought with them and what we could raid from the supplies, the cafeteria supplies. And a phone call came in that we should expect over 1,000 folks within the next few hours because other evacuation sites were to capacity. Now, meanwhile, all this was going on the news. What was playing out was that everything was just humming along at the evacuation sites throughout the state. The logistical planning, the organization, and all of that was unfolding in that immediacy was being really largely coordinated by school employees who had no business being there other than to make sure that things went smoothly. By early afternoon, Keith Land, the principal of Colts Neck High School, was also on site, and they were literally coordinating the events. We were calling for increased security repeatedly. It was a county operation. We had 3 sheriff's officers there at the time. It was not sufficient whatsoever to monitor the high school. Assemblywoman Casagrande and Mayor Schatzel were instrumental in securing us additional sheriff's officers later in the evening. But I have to tell you, as the storm came down and the National Guard came in and was unable to help, and folks were literally just coordinating the evacuation, it was a very dicey situation that could have easily turned into a disaster. and it was not a disaster because of the folks that were there who were taking charge and demonstrating their leadership. All night, Jim Burns worked 36 straight hours on that site. Literally worked there for 36 straight hours. Sean Boyce spent at least 25 hours there over the weekend on his own. Keith Land was there all day Saturday, all day Sunday with his wife. Again, just to make sure things went smoothly. On Sunday, when the county was literally incapable of moving folks back to Asbury Park in a timely manner, so you had a couple hundred people trying to come out and more evacuees coming in, and it was this chaotic situation. It was Frhsd Regional High School District employees that coordinated a bus, actually called the board attorney on the fly to see what kind of rights we had under a state of emergency to use our buses and our drivers to get folks back to Asbury Park in particular. The situation over that 36-hour period was tense and quite frankly dangerous, and dangerous to the folks who were in the building coordinating it, even though a number of volunteers were on site. I have asked the County Superintendent of Schools to request a meeting between county officials, the Red Cross, the Office of Emergency Management, and school districts to better strategize for the next time that this occurs, because we had ample warning that it was coming. And what we found out, and I don't know if this is true or not, but we were so inundated because folks were at other shelters were turning people away, and we didn't turn anybody away. We took pets that weren't caged or crated. We had 2 huge Akita dogs running through the hallways. It was like a sitcom. So it was made possible by a few folks. That weekend went okay because of a few folks, some of whom are in this room. So I would like to extend my thanks to Keith Land for his tireless work that weekend. Sean Boyce, who was on site, and really Sean brought organization to what was happening there in only the way that Sean's capable of. Mrs. Wood, who's a Colts Neck parent, and her children, Dylan, Chris, and Aaron, who were there both days, most of the days, organized the food line, got people moving, and folks were cranky, irritated, hot. They'd been evacuated on day one, sometimes 7 or 8 hours before the storm even came, so it was a very tense situation. Our custodial and maintenance crew at Colts Neck High School, they were phenomenal. At the end of it, one of our custodians who stayed all night on her own punched out, as if that she hadn't just done about 12 hours of overtime. And while this was all unfolding, all the folks that were there could have easily said, this is a county operation, I've got issues at my own home, which we all had, and yet everybody still stayed on site to make sure that it was a safe environment and that our building was taken care of. So I'm going to call, is Jim Burns? Jim, were you here? I'm going to call Jim Burns up. We wanted to recognize Jim in particular, for, again, a 36-hour straight stint, and we have a statue here that says, Jim, courage is grace under pressure. That's a Hemingway quote, presented to James Burns, Hurricane Irene 2011, Frhsd Regional High School District, as a token of our appreciation for your hard work. And I should also note, and that's a great point, Jim, Mary Ann Tomazik and Carl Asatola were there both days as well, working the food line, helping out, and it was, yeah, I called Mr. Asatola to ask for some information at the time, and this is when the storm was coming down, and within 5 minutes he was on site, like rain, he'd come through the rain to help, and literally, and just stayed. And I think it was an excellent example of a community coming together to do, just to make things work, and really a vested interest in what was happening in the school. So thank you to you two as well.
Would you cook pasta?
Can I just ask one question, Chuck? The Red Cross, who supposedly set this up, how many people did they have there?
I don't know. There were a number of volunteers that, they didn't lack. We didn't lack for volunteers that showed up, in a sense. The organization of how it was unfolding was more of the difficulty, and in the immediacy, once things got amped up after 7 or 8 hours, it smoothed it out. But in that initial first part of the day, food, water, the organizational process of processing folks in and putting in, that seemed to be where the difficulty was, which I think moving forward, we have to take a hard look at. And what we tend to do is to talk in vacuums about that. So school districts talk to each other and have their plan. The OEM has their plan. Red Cross has, and there's got to be a better interchange of information to avoid something like that moving forward. The school's power went out in the morning, and they had a generator that allowed limited light, but it was very dark.
Okay, board reports. Let's see. Community relations?
Yeah, just one update on community relations. We have a meeting scheduled for September 21st at 6 p.m. With a large group of folks who had volunteered for that, who ultimately will have 2 large group meetings. Some of those individuals will be broken off in subcommittees throughout the course of the year as we proceed with the strategic planning process.
Okay. Mary Ann, actually 2 things. One is community reports, and then curriculum and instruction.
Yes, so for community events, over the weekend, on the 17th and 18th, Frhsd Borough will have Civil War reenactors encamping at the Monmouth County Historical Museum to kick off an exhibit called Marching Away, Monmouth County in the Civil War. This Sunday, the 18th, will be Marlborough Day at the Municipal Complex from 12 to 5. The following weekend, on Saturday, the 24th, will be the Frhsd Borough-wide yard sale, where hundreds of houses will have yard sales. That Saturday will also be Howell Day at Oak Glen Park from 12 to 6. And then on Sunday, the 25th, Central State Medical Center will be celebrating its 40th anniversary with a community health fair. And there's going to be guest speakers from Biggest Loser and the Teddy Bear Clinic. For a curriculum update, we had a meeting on September 6th. We reviewed the current proposals for independent study that are on the agenda. We also talked about the application and approval process and have discussed some areas that we're looking to revise. We were also presented with revised curricula as relating to the approval that we gave at the last meeting. There are still errors in the documents, so we've sent them back again to be revised. And the new timeline for these curricula should result in the committee reviewing them again in November. And we also reviewed a modified plan to the overall curriculum renewal process, which will hopefully increase the ownership of revision among all the different levels of leadership in the district and produce a better product than what has been coming out.
Okay. Negotiations, we have all the groups up this year for negotiation. The board has already picked different members of the board to be on different committees, whether it's negotiations with the principals or our Teachers Association or the Custodial Association.
Just that we have a preliminary meeting on September 19th as an administrative team to look at, to lay the foundation of language issues around the various contracts. We have school boards that will be coming in at some point yet to be determined to do a free review of our existing contracts. It is going to be a fairly extensive process with literally every single bargaining unit up. Every board member is deployed on multiple negotiation committees, and it will certainly be a long process. We'd like to get an earlier start on this, knowing that really shooting for an October start date rather than November to get the process moving, understanding that it's going to be a fairly elaborate endeavor.
Okay, is there a time for that September 19th meeting?
That's an administrative, it's internal, we're just
Oh,
going to, and then we'll send that to the
Okay.
board.
Okay, any other
Policy Committee.
policy committee?
Mr. President, Mr. Sampson gave me 11 applications or summaries. I have selected 4 committee members. I have forwarded them to Mr. Sampson. He's going to notify them this week, and we'll be meeting shortly.
Any other? Okay, seeing none, we come to our favorites.
On the agenda.
Go ahead, Mr. Boyce.
Just some updates on the agenda on the back table. Along with the agenda, there is a revised K-1 that offers some additional detail. Also on page 4 of the agenda under H2, Melissa Busco Venuto, supervisor being hired. The guide and level is MA plus 30, step 1, and that's $79,883. And the effective date is October 3rd. Also, the Communications and District Projects Coordinator position has been withdrawn, and therefore will not be subject to the public participation or any further discussion. Also, further down on that page, Kyle Kircheski, social studies teacher, and that's at Colts Neck High School, if you make that note. And those are the changes that I have.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we come to public participation. Once again, I would just like to remind you that we enjoy the passion, but we're very intolerant of attacking. Thank you so much. Okay, we come to Mr. Sage.
Just want to clarify, we're tabling H2 with the Nancy Locascio for future time?
H2 has been withdrawn. It may or may not be offered at a future time, but it's withdrawn for now.
All right, so I'm assuming it's going to come back.
I would not make an assumption one way or the other.
All right, well, I'm going to assume it's going to come back, and
Well,
I'm going to make a comment on that.
You heard Sean say that there wasn't going to be comment on this, and let me underscore it, and Mr. Sage, I'll explain why. In a forum such as this one, the First Amendment grants broad rights to discuss issues relating to the school district and even issues relating to school employees or people who are on the agenda to become employees. It doesn't allow a general discussion of people in the community, people that somebody might think about becoming an employee at some point in the future. Just as a forum like this doesn't allow discussion of individuals who have no connection with the school district in any other context. Especially, and I would say the same thing if you intended to compliment or criticize this candidate because the person's no longer a candidate, or at least is not currently a candidate for any position. So there's matters of the privacy of any individual, the right of such an individual not to be discussed or particularly attacked in public, liability concerns from the board's point of view. So whenever you balance the First Amendment in a situation like this, you try to come out with what's fair and what makes sense. What's fair and what makes sense, what protects the rights of any individual member of the community, your rights, and the board's rights, is exactly what Mr. Boyce said, and that is not to permit discussion of somebody who's not on the agenda, who's not employed by the school district. If a person comes back on the agenda as a potential candidate, that's a different story.
I'm just afraid I'm not going to be here the time, if there is another time.
Mr. Sage, you tend to be here.
Okay, thank you very much.
I appreciate it, and thank you for respecting that. I appreciate that, too.
Okay. Mr. Leon.
My comments might run a little bit longer than 4 minutes, so please indulge me. I'll use some of
Leon,
Jim's time.
I don't think we've stuck to the 4-minute one for a long
Okay.
time.
Anyway, in last week's front page section of the Sunday Times, there was an extended article about the pros and cons of introducing new technology into the various school systems. I sent it to several people on the board, and I hope that others have had a chance to see it also. In a nutshell, there haven't been enough long-term studies to show that the expense of introducing advanced computer-driven technology into the learning process will prove any more effective than anything done before. Some studies have shown that test scores have risen, and other studies have shown that they haven't. All that tells us is that test studies can show anything the analysts want them to show. In years past, before the new technologies were introduced into our academic system, the United States was generally considered to be the best educated in the world. We produced many of the best scientists, doctors, engineers, and creative thinkers. Now our nation's academic ratings are floundering far behind too many other countries for us not to be concerned about this situation. I think most of us can agree that too many people, adults and students alike, have exceedingly poor reading and writing skills, as eloquently pointed out by Ms. Tomazik and President Heshe at the last meeting. We also should be concerned about the numbers of freshmen who have to enroll in remedial classes before they begin their college-level courses. I'm sure we've all heard about the poorly written college papers, employment application letters, and other written documents by people who should absolutely know better but don't. The question is, can the new technologies introduced into the classroom change that situation? I'm basically skeptical about these new teaching aids having the positive effect that is touted by the computer and programming people who are selling all this technology. How did the generations before us achieve so much success without computers and all the advances in communication that the internet has provided us? I think part of the answer is simple. They read real books, they wrote real letters, and they communicated and related to people in real time. I personally think the shorthand of texting and tweeting is shortchanging our students today. I recall being somewhat disappointed when I heard Mr. Sampson say at his first meeting with the public before he was selected to be superintendent that he didn't care if the kids texted or tweeted as long as they wrote. I think he should care. The habit of using that shorthand has become so much a part of how many people communicate now. They've lost the basic writing skills which indicate an educated person. Downloading ebooks is not the same as browsing the bookshelves in Borders. Without those real bookstores, we lose the oasis of literature that was available to everyone, not just those with Kindles or iPads. When people read, they learn how to write. They learn the rhythm of word usage and sentence structure when they read well-written books. They learn to edit what they write when they read back to themselves the convoluted context of a mismanaged sentence. That's the beauty of a computer. It allows the writer to make instant corrections, but it is the reading that teaches that writer what sounds correct in the first place. The new technologies do have a place in our school, but as an aid to the students, not as a teaching device. Nothing should take the place of reading good literature. The generations before us knew how to figure out mathematical problems and equations because they were taught how to think. They learned their math tables and scientific formulas and learned how to apply that knowledge to create the technology we have now. The key word is they learned things. They learned how to think. They learned how to use their brains to solve problems. My fear is that adding too much technology into today's schools will deny this generation the ability to learn anything other than how to use the equipment. How often have we been in a situation where we've gone to pay a bill in a store and were told by the cashier that the computer was down and discovered that they didn't know how to make change of a $5 or $10 bill? Of course, what I've stated does not apply to everyone. There are many students coming out of our schools who are doing exceedingly well and have all the skills necessary to achieve the successful lives they hope for. Unfortunately, there are also too many others who are falling behind because they aren't prepared and are what I consider trapped by the culture of the new technologies.
Thank you.
Just a response to the technology comment. What I referenced specifically was a study from the University of Stanford that said that teenagers are writing more than they've ever written previously. They're just doing it in a different form, to the tune of about 2,200 text messages a month. The role of technology is not to replace effective writing or to replace reading great literature. The role of technology can serve as an entry point into harnessing interest in students. They are utilizing those tools, and the art I think I referenced during that public forum was how do we harness that to the most effective means. Not that I didn't care how students wrote, but that there was a vehicle in which they were writing much more than folks realize today with that technology. Just a clarification.
But those communications are written in the shorthand of texting and tweeting, and that's why they don't know how to write. Many of them.
Okay, next we have Miss Gloria.
Good evening. Gloria Close, 184 Taylor's Mills, Manalapan. At the last board meeting, I discussed Mr. Sampson's contract. Mr. Sampson stated that the contract I had received from the office of Mr. Boyce is different from what he mailed me that afternoon, the afternoon of the meeting. I did not see it before I left for the meeting. I don't doubt that what I received from Mr. Boyce was different from what Mr. Sampson had emailed me. I was right to say that both contracts read exactly the same. I was concerned about tenure, which I brought it up. That was not on the contract. Mr. Edelstein gave his opinion on that and informed the public that that position is no longer a tenure position. I have a question on the agenda item, not really a question, I just want to ask. On page 6, H3, the controller position, I feel should not be replaced since Ms. or Mr. Pereira, Mr. Pereira, who is the current controller in the district, will be replacing the assistant business administration. Mr. Pereira's former position should not be merged into one position with the responsibilities of the assistant business administrator. I look at the chart that I have here, they fall on the same line. It is wasteful, not to mention redundant, to have two positions when one person can easily get the job done. At $95,000, this position should have more responsibilities to reflect the pay increase. It is much of a burden to a taxpayer. We should be more fiscally responsible, especially in this worst economic downturn. It is not unreasonable to us to have one person perform a dual responsibilities. I applied to be on the Finance Committee. To this date, I have not heard any response yet. I did email Mr. Sampson. I spoke at the last meeting to find out where I stand on this committee, whether I'm in or I'm out. I have not been contacted yet. This is a volunteer position. And like I said, I'm giving you what I can do best for the district. I was an accountant once. But I guess nobody dares to even write me an email and tell me you're out. I would appreciate at least to let me know where I stand on this committee. Mr. Messenger put a request to the board to allow the Marlboro alumni to hold their reunion in Marlboro High School at the last meeting where alcohol will be served. I am surprised that a seated board member will put a request where alcohol is involved. Has the board even discussed this further among yourself? That maybe, if not, we should bring the opinion of the Mothers Against Drunk Driving on these issues. Where are we now with the proposal to the lawyer? We are, as Mr. Heshi said, the negotiating committees are now formed, but I believe you have to have a lawyer to support you, right? Where are you on that negotiation right now? I mean, your proposal. Lastly, I understand Dr. Hazel is in charge of this new academy at the Manalapan High School. I have an idea what it's all about. I just want to ask maybe Dr. Hazel, you can just give us a very brief description of that academy. Is it going to be housing the art students, or are we going to, the in-house students, you say that, or are we going to open it to the out-of-the-district students for revenue reason? Thank you.
Anybody want to?
The program, the new academy, the Regional Learning Academy, right now houses 19 students, classified students. It's a specialized program where they're receiving clinical services, where we have our special education supervisor, our administrative team is working closely with these students and with these families. Right at this time for this year, we really don't want to have the program really go too far. In the 20s, we want to, get started our first year, meet all the needs of the students, meet the program, and all the expectations with success. The team is doing a fabulous job in working with the students and the families. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback from the families. Right now, it's for our in-district students. We've had a number of students that have come from their out-of-district placements and have returned back to district. One of the things our district prides itself on is LRE, the least restrictive environment. So we felt that we could really do the job and do it even better at the Regional Learning Academy at Manalapan High School. So we were very successful in working closely with the families to return these students to district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask Mr. Boyce a question? What's the operating budget at this district?
170 million.
Thank you.
Okay, and I guess it's my fault, Gloria. I thought I made myself clear about the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee was formed a while ago, and it's full, so respectfully, you're out.
Mr. Hasey, Mr.
You can call me Hazy. It's okay.
That was never advertised. I thought you were going to put that out. I watched that. I mean, I gave up policy, which I got working with Mr. Bruno, because I do wanted to get into the finances. Who are the members? How were they selected? Is it among you people, the board members, or did you take somebody from the public?
No, there's people from the public.
All of you only for the finance are all elected board members?
No, there's people
So
from.
there was public members, and I never saw how it, when you advertise it, it was never open. I asked you over and over in public meeting. When is the
No,
trust
no.
restored?
When you asked, it had already been formed. What?
Months ago?
Okay, I'm sorry. I guess this is not for discussion. I'll discuss it with you afterwards. Okay. Craig, I can't read the last name. Is it Poole? Poole, sorry. Craig, what town are you from?
Frhsd.
Okay.
My name is Craig Poole. I live at 48 Langdale Drive, Frhsd, New Jersey. On September 2nd, my son and 9 other freshmen were ready to go to high school. The bus was supposed to pick them up at 9:45. At 5 minutes after 10, the bus did not arrive, so we called the high school. We asked them where our bus is. They said they were trying to get a hold of the transportation department, and the line was busy, and no one would call them back. We called again at 10 minutes after. they said, why don't you take the children to school? So 3 parents loaded up the children and brought them to school. On their way home from school, the bus driver decided to take them to Ardenia School in Howell. Then decided to do was to take it along Route 9 past the bowling alley, where we live only 3 miles away. It took them an hour and 10 minutes to get home. On Tuesday, everything went great. But on Wednesday, the bus didn't show again. But this time, it wasn't just the freshmen, it was the whole student body, 36 children. At 10 minutes after 10, we called again. We can't get a hold of the transportation department. We didn't know what to do. Myself and 17 other parents called. We couldn't get a hold of anyone. We got a hold of one person in the transportation department at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They said there's only 7 of us and we have 12,000 kids to worry about. We can't be bothered by this. On Thursday, the bus does not show again. This time I call up the Frhsd, this building here, and I asked to speak to somebody, and I was given Mr. Boyce's name. He wasn't available. His secretary was very kind to speak with me. She found out that the first driver that started on Friday was brand new. And the person who was supposed to show up was a substitute driver for the next 2 days. But the person had no training, no knowledge, and besides not coming to our development, he missed another development completely. On Friday, it came, 26 minutes late. Today, it only arrived 17 minutes late. After speaking to the other families, we found that the last year, 9 times the bus did not arrive at all. That's 5% of the school time that our children did not get to school. You must be paying these people lots of money, yet they're not doing their job. There's nobody in the high school willing to take responsibility because we call up and he says, we'll talk to the transportation department. They don't know if our children are there or not. It's a very big, serious problem. You know, I'd like you to just discuss it and come back to us with some kind of a solution, and I thank you.
Mr. Poole, do you know which bus company that was before you go, for me to look into this?
I think it was told STA.
STA, okay.
It's unacceptable, Mr. Poole. I mean, that's the short answer to that, and trust me, we'll look into it.
Yeah,
You're paying these people.
Right.
And the other thing is no one wants to talk to you. You know, where's our kid? I mean, there's no checkpoint. My child arrives at school, they don't know if my child's on the bus or not, or my whole group of children are there or not. And if they arrive at the school and find out that 2 developments are missing in that one bus, something should be aware of and know about it, but there isn't.
If I could just remind the board of a situation that we had last year, and sometimes with the contractors that we hire, they're not able to do the work that they've taken on. It's a low bid situation. We're required to award the bid there, and then there's a series of steps that you go through to give them the opportunity to cure, and if they don't, as we did last year, we fire them, and that's what we've done in the past, and we're building our case to be able to do that again if necessary this year. But Mr. Poole will certainly look into it, and we'll be in touch with you directly.
Is there anyone else who did? Of course. Helen.
Helen Hochberg, Marlboro, New Jersey. Mr. Edelstein, this question is for you. I've asked at the last meeting, and I'd like to have an update on the status of the reimbursement of the insurance company in regard to the Bonnie Sue Rosenwald litigation. Has any money been recovered, as this lawsuit cost the taxpayers $247,000?
Now, let's be clear what you're saying. You're talking about the cost of the underlying litigation, which in which the board, pursuant to the indemnification statutes, had to pay the lawyers of the participants in the ethics case, and not this board. I've said this before, but just so that everybody's in the same place, although money was tendered, it was an inadequate amount of money. Since the last meeting, and because of the foot dragging that was going on, some very aggressive steps have been taken such that the court is setting a very short date to render a decision in this. So it will no longer be up to the insurance company to say whether they're going to come up with more money or not. There will be a judge who will be entering an order. I don't know if that will have occurred by the next meeting, but I would feel pretty sure it will occur very quickly.
Jim.
You guys finally got me speechless here tonight. Sorry, but it was a little overwhelming. As some of you know, I was a medic in Vietnam, and this weekend we had a reunion, and I saw guys that I had left 42 years ago. But with 9/11, although this agenda is very important, the school business, but the way the Frhsd Regional family came together with Carl and Mary Ann, and, you know, the assemblywoman was in there, and, you know, homeless, we had students in there. You know, Chuck just didn't say enough for what it was there. You know, we had people with different languages, we had the group homes, we had babies, we had animals, we had the Board of Health telling us that our locker rooms weren't acceptable for the animals. I'm like, come on, you know, but, you know, to see Carl and Mary Ann and Chuck and Sean, you know, putting their own families, Chuck lives an hour away without power just to take care of the community. I think I'm proud to be part of this Frhsd Regional family. All right, so thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Because we have to go back into closed session, I would like to make a suggestion that we vote on the entire agenda, one vote. Anybody have a problem with that? Okay. So, on H1 to K1? And K2. Okay.
Second.
Mary Ann. Discussion? I just have one discussion thing to say. A word was used that, I think Gloria used the word, where combining two things could easily be done. That's an oversimplification of that job. I don't think easily done is the right term to use. I just wanted to say that because I know how much work Alex is going to have to do just in that one job.
It's a $170 million organization.
What's that?
It's a $170 million organization.
Right. Okay, here we go. Discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Boyce?
Mr. Asatola?
Yes on everything.
Mr. Bruno?
Yes.
Mrs. Canario?
Yes.
Mrs. Lavin?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
Mr. Messinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Sutera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazick?
Yes.
Mr. Moses?
Yes.
And this executive session will be for matters of attorney-client privilege. The public portion of the meeting can be adjourned now.
Okay.
There'll be no further action taken.
All right. Can we have a motion to close?
Motion. Second.
Jen and Mary Ann, second.